Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. And it has been quite a day in the oil market. Now, a lot of you know that we had some pretty good luck with the oil, and you're all excited to get back in it, but it's just not that simple. It never is. And the reason is this. Oil market was whipsawed today and big moves for what's kind of sometimes a sleepy market. And the moves were over Donald Trump getting one of his twipsters, and he knew the story about Cohen turning over tapes to the FBI prosecutor chafed his ass. And, oh, Donald, the mouthpiece turned over the lawyer, your lawyer turned over the tapes to the prosecutor. Oh, Donald, what did you do, buddy? So anyway, Don's got himself a problem. So one of the ways he solves the problem is making sure that there's lots of noise out there, and he chose to threaten Iran. Don't you ever threaten the United States again. Those are religious theocrats, zealots. You don't take them seriously. No one does. But Donald's decided to make it a big deal, and for all the good it will not do. But where that was played out was in the oil markets, and oil was, guys went, whoa, Donald Trump's going to, unleash hellfire and fury, and it sounded like he was threatening a nuclear attack. And it's like, Donald is just talking bullshit. He's not going to do a nuclear attack. His handlers and minders won't let him, believe me. He's more closely controlled now that a lot of people are very worried about him than you might realize. There's some real patriots in the White House. And contrary to popular myth, they're real worried about Donald. And they're not going to let him get up in the middle of the night and kind of do something really stupid. I'm telling you. Now, we could have some palace intrigue in the future, but that's not what today's show is. We'll have plenty of time to talk about all that. What we want to talk about and what we have understanding is that the oil market is confused between the ones who say a lot of supply is coming on stream and the price is going to fall, and those who say that with the embargoes, supplies won't get there soon enough or enough, and that oil is pretty much shut in America because of lack of pipeline capacity. And as is often the case, there's truth to most of this, but if you want to trade oil successfully, you have to balance them out and understand who's going to win, what's going to win, and when. When's a real important part of the equation. Now, like I said, the oil market jumped up nicely. In fact, I watched it as Donald Trump declared that, hell yeah, he's going to beat the shit out of Iran from $68 a barrel and all the way up to right up to the trend line at $69.35, right? Kind of soared up there. And then what happened was, that was, by the way, September. And then, by the way, what happened was then there was talk about supply coming on stream and that a lot of oil come in the market. And the market went right back down again to close 34 cents lower. So, what a nice swing day. $2 and change swing in one day in oil. Very nice. So we normally don't see that except on down days where we only get 3. So that made us want to stand aside again and watch oil. Oil is in this back and forth confusing stage, but I want to mention to you that since we put in that low where we had our little party, oil has been climbing steadily. And from that $66 low where we luckily got out, it's had a range up to 69. And that $3 swing shows the market building, although down slightly every day. But let me tell you, there's a few other things in the oil market you need to be aware about, and that is the spread is back. The spread has been shrinking, and now the spread between October Brent and October West Texas is now back to $6.61, okay? Now, that spread is important to a guy like me because we want to see how spread is going to go and how the spread is going to work out in the marketplace. That's part of how oil is valued, okay? So you've gone from $11 spread to an $8 spread to $6 now. So the spread's coming out of the market. And understand that, I was looking at a $3 spread back in February. So for a guy like me, the spread has gone from $3 in February to its widest level on the basis of this trade. These instruments, $11.32, and then climbed to $8, and now is at $6. Is a warning sign that the market is very much in disarray. Now, there's another situation you realize, and that is that oil from September of this year is at $67 a barrel, and when you get back to September next year, it's at $63. So that is a $3 backwardization. Not the biggest I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something you want to watch, okay? Because those are the kind of things that can really bite you in the ass if you're not careful, okay? There are a lot of people in the oil market that are very worried about price. And when they worry about price, I worry about price, if you understand. Now, in Brent, you've got that spread that's much narrower, okay? So you want to understand that the contango is starting to come back into Brent, and that means that there's a great disparity between what we're looking at in the U.S. and what we're looking at overseas. Now there is a complicated trade to take advantage as an ARB on that contango, but unless you understand and have a delivery facility, that is not advisable. Okay, so that's something that's for people that are in a different end of the business that play a different game than we do. Having said that, it's also indicative of the fact that the oil market in the U.S. is predicting more supply coming on stream all the way through up until next year. While the Europeans believe that supply is going to be short, and they're going from like $73 now and looking at 74. So, but the spread's not that wide, okay? So the vote would have to be that the market believes it will be well supplied, okay? Now, here's the problem. Here's the game. The danger is you could have a market that's going to be well supplied, and you could still end up with a $90 barrel oil, okay? And that will be tough for a lot of you to trade. And $100 would probably be out of the question. Now, for me, $100 barrel oil, I'm dancing a jig. I'll go down naked on Main Street and do the bump. I mean, that is cool stuff. But reality is that we need to understand a little more about what the supply situation really is. That's one problem. The other problem we have is one that is pretty big, and that is the fact that Donald Trump has got me totally confused. I expect him to do the asshole thing, don't get me wrong, but he's got me totally confused about what he's going to do in oil, and I'm going to explain something to you. Donald Trump doesn't have, and I'm trying to be kind here, the longest attention span in the world, and like Tillerson, former president of Exxon, said that the man's an imbecile. Now, that problem with that imbecile is that he's got a great big stick, and he's got a bully pulpit, and what he said can cost you a lot of money if you're not careful. My problem is the following. Donald Trump has got oil on the mind. But since he's probably bipolar and on lithium, he's not, it should be, he's not understanding the mixed message he's sending. One minute he's saying he wants more oil to come in the market. The next minute he's saying that he's going to kick the shit out of Iran if they dare threaten the United States one more time. And that has got the markets nervous because obviously if he nukes Iran, that'll be kind of hard on the delivery. Now, do I think he's going to do that? No. The problem we have, though, is that part of, I always like to have more than, let me get back. Normally when I get in a trade, if I'm going to risk my money, and I'm not going to risk your money, I like to have a lot of things going my way, okay? So if I think the oil trade is going to be turning on oil supplies being abundant, I like that. And I want to see U.S. oil supplies increase. And the diminishing side of the trade is I don't want to see oil coming out of the market, and I want to know the barrels that with Iran will be made up. Okay, so I want to see where that oil is coming from. Now, one of the things that was important to me in the trade, one of the things I was counting on, was that Donald Trump would go ahead and drag oil out of strategic reserve to kind of guarantee our trade. I love when politicians do that for me. And the problem is that we have this overriding concern situation. In other words, with a guy like Donald Trump who is bipolar, it's who talked to him last and who talked him into what bullshit is going to be next, okay? And my problem is that I just don't know how serious he is about the strategic stockpile, and I'm getting more concerned that Donald Trump may just forget the whole damn lower gasoline price idea for the elections and rely upon the fact that hopefully Americans will be so enamored with him kicking the shit out of Iranians and Ayatollahs going flying off of rooftops and the Marines going in there that they'll forget that they're paying $4 a gallon for the fuel for the pick-em-up truck. So with that thought in mind, you kind of want to stand aside and just kind of watch things. And that's where I'm at in oil, because the contango is not right. Okay, the inversion is there. My backwardization is huge. My inventories are flowing, but I'm not clear how this is all going to shake out. And a lot of pieces kind of moving in the puzzle, see? Now, when you're in a trade and you've got pieces like that moving, the best thing you do is say, well, let's see how this shakes out. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The market has an upward tilt to it, although very slight. But the bias is to the upside, okay? Now, with a 12 and 30 and 40 cent increase, say 50 cents, going back to May next year, that tilt is significant, but not, how can I put this, a driving force to be reckoned with, okay? So that means that I want to watch this and give the market some time to shake out. Now, I also know that there's some hedgers in trouble, and there's some spread traders in trouble, and I'm not sure that they have, should we say, dealt with their problem adequately. Now, normally in a case like that, if you want to be a hero in the firm, you go in there and pick up that book, and you convince your boss to give you a little bit more money to throw at it. And if you can, trade the lost parameters and bring them down, you become a hero. And I can tell you for a fact that is what's going on. Now, that's a very dangerous game because the fundamentals who are violated in oil are being violated by the backwardization and by the lack of understanding what oil supply really means. Now, let me tell you the other side of this thing. What also drives the oil trade, to my view of lower oil, is that U.S. production is definitely picking up. Now, of course, there are bottlenecks, as always there is, because new fields come into production. There's a lag time before the pipelines come in, the terminals come in, and all that. But that, because it's driven by greed, has a way of getting dealt with in ways that will surprise you and faster. That's one. Now, the other side of this thing is that my belief is we're headed for a big, ugly, nasty recession. It'll start biting in the markets this time next year. Now, that's okay. The people who are going to figure that out this time next year is kind of like the slow people. Now, the trader community will normally have to figure this out, and I figure as the markets rally the windows back and as we kind of slide coming to the end of the year, that will be common news in the marketplace. Now, remember that when there's a market opinion that prevails in the market, i.e. we're slowing down in a recession, then what happens is the lower tier traders look for their opportunity. And then you say, well, listen, if we're having a recession and things slowing down, and it's the United States, and it's going to spread around the world, hell's bells, we're going to have less demand for oil no matter what the U.S. bottlenecks are like. Okay, and that is the stuff that we want to see in the marketplace, okay? So that can drive a trade. But here's your problem. The problem is, in the ugly world we're living in, you got to get from here to there. In other words, if you're getting to oil where there'll be conviction in the marketplace that there's more than adequate supplies, and we get in a situation in the marketplace where, holy shit, Batman, there is a lot of oil here, and we don't know where the hell it's going to go, that will drive markets lower, obviously. The problem is that as you get to that party, you might have $100 barrel oil between now and then. And if that's the case, you got to be very careful about your trade and your loss parameters and all that. So that's part of the finesse in this game. And I like finesse. And I like finesse up. So the issue here is that when those points are not clear, listen, this is some real wisdom for you. When those points are not clear, it's better to just kind of stand aside and wait for that Zen moment of clarity that you know will come. And without all my ducks in a row in a trade, I don't like to make them. I don't like to jump in. I want to see that my pieces are right. I want to see that my understanding of the pieces are right. And if that all works, then it's rock and roll party time, okay? Because of the nature of the game, because of the amount of huge leverage, because of the danger of being wrong, you want to make sure you're right more than you're wrong. Now, once you do that, then you have fun. So, I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that is my most least favorite word in the English language, and that is we got to friggin' wait. Now, you hate waiting, I hate waiting, but there are times when that's the case. And that's my feeling on oil right now because, again, I am not clear on how this oil market is going to shake out. I don't like the noise I'm hearing. Does that make any sense to you? There's got a lot of noise in here that just is not coming from sources that I feel comfortable with. So that means that I got to do this shitting thing and kind of see how it all shakes out because here's the situation. We have got a mess that is in the marketplace, okay? That means that you have a lot of markets moving in a lot of different directions, confused about what is reality and what is fantasy. Now, when you end up with that crazy shit in the marketplace, I can tell you that it's best to let it sort itself out entirely. Because if you don't, you wake up one day and there's a big hole in your account where the money used to be. And the wild card, there's another wild card here, and that is the Trump trade war. See, the Trump trade war also will put a drag on oil. It could create a lessening demand for U.S. crude. China may retaliate that way. So now I've got these other factors in the market that normally wouldn't be there, and that's Donald Trump churning and blowing and going. Now, my big problem is I don't know where Trump is in this thing. I'm having trouble getting a beat on him. I regard him as erratic, and so that removes my predictability factor in the marketplace. Now, inventories are definitely going to rise, and we will have oil markets well supplied, but there are some ripples in the water. There are some things that, you sit there and you go, I'm not so sure about that one, Kimosabi, and I'm not so sure I'm so right about that one. So then what you have to do is kind of allow this thing to shake itself out. And I hate that shit. So understand that we also have another factor in here, and that's the currency, okay? The dollar is, and probably a better trade now, the dollar is due to go much higher, okay? Now, the reason for that is this trade war is going to be met with a couple little tricks, and that is the Chinese are smart enough to know with plausible deniability to go, oh, we're not manipulating our currency lower. Donald, that's you and your Federal Reserve, buddy. And when you start having that happen, the dollar factor, again, comes in as part of the market pricing. Oil's traded in dollars, but traders have to convert $2 out of their currency. Now, the question on that is, what are our currency rates going to be going forward? Now, if I use what I call my tilt, I'm seeing a slowly climbing, consistently stronger dollar. And I see that factored in. That's why, part of the reason why I've got Brent trading higher. Got it. Yeah. That should have been a little ding-ding for you there. So with Brent trading higher in the back marks and U.S. trading lower, that's telling me that traders are expecting higher prices in local currencies as a factor of dollar strength. Got that? Yeah. Remember, these guys are all dying on spread differentials, okay? It's billions of, billion barrels here, a billion barrels there, 10 cents there, 10 cents there, and pretty soon you've got real money. So this is kind of the spin that's developing in the marketplace. Now, Donald Trump running around threatening to nuke Iran, in essence that's what he said, is difficult for me. Now, also the problem is that you could have a downside risk situation initially, then an upside risk, and then a downside risk again. In other words, the old wiggle waggle goes up, goes down. That's what markets do. The problem is, hear me again, it's a little bit of wisdom of trading, is that I love up and down moves, but they got to be predictable. And I'm now not in a situation where anything looks predictable to me. Does that make any sense? I'm just not feeling where these things are going to go. So that means I've got to watch this and understand exactly where the pieces will fall. Now, the problem is that the confusion abounds because you got Donald shithead Trump there. I mean, he's just stirring the pot. Now, when that happens, that means anxiety level increases. The volatility increases and people buying protection increases. So we're going to have to weigh that all in the game, because sooner or later oil prices are going to be coming down, reflecting huge supply increases, whether Iran is in the market or out of the market, whether China buys from the U.S. or withdraws the bid. So we have to be very careful about how we approach the market, because the factors are not quantifiable right now, not for us and not for our opponents in the market. So in other words, everyone's sitting here trying to scratch their ass, trying to get a leg up on what's going on. I'm talking about people who really know what they're doing, not the jokesters. And you can't get a handle on it. I can tell you that some of the big exploration companies and the big deep water guys are kind of missing a beat here, which I find very interesting. They're not jumping into new projects. But I can also tell you the frackers are going fracking wild. And I can also tell you that smaller banks in the fracking part of the world are making a lot of money available to them because they need the business and because they're forcing them to hedge a part of their considerable future production. But here's the problem. The penalty, if you have not reserved pipeline space to get your oil out, is huge. I am seeing some companies having to take like $25 a barrel for their oil, okay? Now, don't feel sorry for them. They're still profitable, and they're still playing their capitalization, and it's not such a stupid game to play, okay? Why? Well, because 25 is better than nothing. You're establishing the throughput in your well. You are allowing yourself time to continue to grow while eventually the pipeline gets to you. So we have got ourselves one hell of a trade in oil. And it's an oil trade that's going to really go our way. But the problem is that you just don't know the timing of how this shakes out. You got the elections that are going to become a brighter spot on the radar screen. And you've got Trump, who one minute he wants to lower energy prices, another minute he wants to kick Ayatollah ass. I wish you'd make up your mind, Donald. So now the other thing is you have to anticipate that as these things go, there's more bad headlines coming, right? Donald Trump got himself a problem. He's got a prosecutor on his ass that I believe is got a great big thick file that on the jacket on the outside says presidential collusion in the last election. And I think that collusion file is something that has Donald Trump waking up in a cold sweat. And I don't know how that cookie crumbles, when that breaks. Because you're going to have a situation that a lot of wild charges about collusion and a lot of evidence. Because remember, Mueller has been very silent, and he's the guy who, what he says counts more than Fox News, Hannity, or anybody else for that matter. So when he comes out with his report, that could override everything. Now, I've been in a situation where you've got a trade that's fundamentally correct. You got the market going your way, and some big news item distracts everybody, and your trade goes to hell. And that very much could be the situation. Trump has got me really nervous. I normally like to pin things down. I mean, I have an ability to pin things down, but with Donald Trump, I think he's going hot wild. I mean, I think old Don's real worried about some of his big problems here. And from Donald Trump's perspective, though he never admitted it, he sees his problems getting bigger and bigger, and that's why you're getting so much blowback, okay? Now, the problem with that is that's all nice, but that is not a tradable situation for you and me. Got it? In other words, it's all there, and I really like having it, but holy shit, I've got to have it fundable and tradable, and if I don't, I get in trouble very quickly. And that is very much what is in the limelight in this market at the present time. How does Donald Trump shake out? You know, it's kind of strange, and I've been ranting and raving about him for a while, but people are becoming more concerned about how that all shakes out. The people are actually asking the question of what will Donald Trump do if his back's against the wall, and all of a sudden that's becoming a factor in more trading desks, you know. Will this guy go hog wild crazy? And the answer in my mind is, oh yeah. You haven't begun to see crazy like what's going to happen when Donald Trump goes off the deep end. And if that happens, then we have a whole other set of dynamics that affects every trade, every aspect of the market, every aspect of world trade, value of the dollar. Now, I feel like we have that quantified. In other words, I understand that at some point Donald Trump will blow a gasket. At some point, he will try to trash his enemies, perceived and real. And at some point, he will trash the economy and trash the stock market to save himself. So that's called desperado. Now, I like desperados because desperate people are very predictable, and Donald Trump, to me, is becoming more predictable by the day. He is moving into an area where he absolutely has to control the headlines on almost a daily basis that is so ridiculous it's absurd. He understands. See, Donald Trump knows what's in files. He knows what the flow is going to be. He also has a pretty good idea of what the prosecutors have got. And that's not for a happy reading for old Donald. That's why he's timing that Putin summit, right? Putin gets here in time as election season starts to kind of make that noise go away. So Donald Trump, but don't underestimate. I mean, he is stupid when it comes to international affairs and the economy and values of dollars, but he's very clever boy when it comes to understanding manipulating media, putting confusion and plausible deniability in the marketplace, and he's getting better and better at it because why? That's his whole survival. Donald Trump's got to keep you so confused and the market so off balance that he can kind of skate away with this thing and pretend like he's just some innocent guy with a deep state conspiracy narrative. And by the way, that's playing very well. That's playing very well with Donald and his buddies. And they really are buying into this thing hook, line, and sinker. So if Donald can continue that and expand it onto a bigger story and more noise in the marketplace, for him, he can spin out of that thing. And that's like I said, it's not so stupid. It's not such a dumb ploy. But there is a lot that can go wrong here, okay? And that's what makes this the most exciting trading time I've ever seen. You got to understand that this is going to be a media war. This next election is going to be fought in the Twitterscape and on Fox News and fake news and re-news, and it is going to be confusing, and it's going to be hotly contested. It's going to be a very angry country. And that's the direction Donald Trump wants to take it in. And I have to tell you, from, again, a standpoint of Donald Trump, that's not such a stupid move. You know, keep the shit flowing, keep the blow and go, keep yourself in the headline. And the problem with that is that then you don't necessarily take care of business. In other words, the problem you had with Donald Trump was that as he gets into this, his incentive to watch over the economy, his incentive to really make things grow, make America great again, diminishes when he has to weigh his survival. So would Donald Trump do something to damage the economy to get him a headline, to make him appear like the deep state's doing nasty things? Oh, hell yes. Oh, hell yes. So for Donald Trump, it's all about the elections and it's all about survival. Now, when you understand that, you got to take that into everything you think, every way you look at a market, every trade you make, because it's not what you would normally see. Well, yeah, you have very greedy people who want to become politicians, but Donald Trump is truly capable of anything.